Welcome to another Founder Wisdom Pod. We're going to do a little webinar here, me and Michelle Seay Baker. Michelle has been a friend and a subscriber, and we've been interacting a lot in the past couple of months. So eager to just jam with her today about the various a litany of topics, including AI in data and leadership, growing startups, and yeah, like fractional roles like fractional CMOs and everything that Michelle does. She's helping revenue. She's helping leaders drive revenue with AI powered research. So AI powered research definitely a good topic for today. She's a growth architect, a fractional CMO herself, and a market research consultant. So eager to jump right in, Michelle. Michelle, welcome to the pod. Maybe if you could start with a quick intro and tell us a bit more about yourself.
Yeah, sure. So thank you for having me here today, Charles. I'm excited about this chat. I started out my career in traditional public relations, was the director of communications at the Dallas Chamber of Commerce. And then I got my accreditation in public relations. And during that process, I learned a lot about research and data and how that really needs to inform strategic planning. So then flash forward, I ran a digital marketing agency for several years, many years, I should say. And then I ended up being a research analyst at USAA for 2 years. And then a head of marketing at a fast growing software company. So you put all that together, and now I'm pulling all that together to help business owners and marketing leaders to really use research to make sure that their marketing efforts are as successful as they can, and basically get to their growth goals smarter and faster. So
Very cool. And where does AI come into your research process? Today I had another research slash survey company that they interview farmers, interestingly enough, to bring back these data insights to their agriculture clients. Where does AI come into the process? Is it on the research process straight up, like using deep research? Is it shaping the questions? Is it finding the customers? Tell me a bit more about that.
yeah, for sure. So AI can be used in research in many different ways. So one of the first things that I like to do is, yes, deep research. Really like to do that on Gemini and just look at all of the different factors that are going on online, competitors, what kind of pricing people are charging. Looking at what the economic factors are and how they're impacting the industry. So just looking at all of those factors through deep research, that's one way. And then from there, I traditionally have always liked to do qualitative research first, where you interview like customers and find out like what their pain points are and what they care about. But I now today am working with a company called Subconscious, and they have a really fascinating, revolutionary tool that allows you to really find out like what features that consumers would most want to use, and not only the features but what different aspects or levels of those features that they would want or need. And then it also provides like pricing analysis as well, and how you can price your product to make more money in the market. So now today with AI, I'm going to jump into that tool first. Well, I mean, I say I'd like to do the deep research first to get that macro, economic environment. But then getting into the Subconscious tool, I can get into it and, run a survey in about 30 minutes. So that's really great to have that tool. Then there's a lot of
That's
other.
AI personas, right? Like it's personas created out of real persons, but with AI.
Yeah, yeah. So actually, the way it works is they've uploaded like thousands of studies that are human research studies from the past, and then upload them into the system, and then create digital twins based on the behaviors of all of that research that was human, and then you send out a survey basically to. It's like a traditional survey in a way. It's not exactly the same because it's more causal type research than correlative research. But they create digital twins. You send out the survey, and then it comes back with the results really within you know, 10 minutes the study can run, but I would say that as a researcher, I'm going to spend a little time like developing a research brief, finding out what the company's goals are, and all of that before I actually would run the survey. So
And that drastically accelerates research time. Does it also bring better qualitative insights than before as well?
yeah, it really does. So, traditional research for a company, if you hired a major research firm, you're looking at really 6 weeks at the minimum, up to 2 to 3 months by the time you like develop all the research briefs, get a survey questionnaire written, send it out to the field, to real people. And then you have to have all the weeks of time to analyze it and present it out to leadership. This really allows you to do it like super fast. So, and you're also getting like real time insights instead of, when you do a survey traditionally, you might have done it 2 or 3 months ago and the data was static in that time. Whereas this data is kept up to date. And so you can get, current data in real time. So it's pretty exciting.
And is research still relevant, or should founders just jump right straight up into action and get the best quality data, okay, getting real customer feedback?
I still advocate for getting real customer feedback as well. I mean, the subconscious tool it does give you like messaging ideas and some sort of like mindsets, which are sort of like personas, but not a little bit different. So you can get some of that kind of qualitative information from there. But I think there's still a good case for interviewing real human customers because you're going to find out the exact words that they're going to use to describe their pain points. So I think that instead of doing normally in the past, I would have done qualitative first, like those customer interviews, but now I'm doing the quantitative with subconscious first, and then I can go into the qualitative and just bring out that rich like vocabulary that humans use that you want to use in ads.
But
So
what I meant is more like not even customer interviews, but just straight up getting clients and looking at their interactions with your product as the core, the centric data piece, right? Like instead of asking them questions which might bring some bias.
um, yeah, I mean, I think that you have to you, you do have to get that human input on the product. I think that's still important. But I mean, you can go into subconscious and get like really important information to develop the product. I think it's not just subconscious is not just about like testing the actual product as it is like you can play around with the features in it to see how to develop the product, so that it will best sell to the customers. And then, of course, you're always going to want to go out and test it with the customers as well. So, does that answer your question? Or
Because what I'm getting to is that I've talked to hundreds, if not thousands, of very smart human beings. And when you talk to them, I mean, you can ask very good questions that will resonate 100% with their mind, but you still need the trust, the emotional connection to get to the real answer. Most humans will tell you something, but it's not really either what they mean or it's either biased and untrue. So my thesis is like, why not check at the product data itself and be like, oh, John dropped at this point because of XYZ, instead of calling John and asking them, hey, John, why did you drop? And John, just to be nice, will be like, yeah, I don't know, guys. I was too busy that day. But what he really means is like, it's too expensive, it's too complex. What do you think about that procedure instead of asking questions to humans?
yeah, for sure. I mean, we call that like the say do gap, so people will say one thing, but they will do another thing. And yes, in any kind of a qualitative interview, customers will lie. And especially if they're talking to the business owner, they will just lie because they don't want to hurt your feelings. So if you're going to do older school real interviews with people, you need to have another party do it, a professional interviewer who doesn't share their identity with the business owner. And then you can get really much more honest feedback then if you have a really good interviewer. But the beauty of subconscious is that the way that it's designed is that it's based on human behavior. So it's what people are actually going to do, based on all of the research as opposed to just what they're going to say. So it's actually, um, honestly, like more accurate than you would get with human data in many cases.
Interesting. Yeah, I'll check out Subconscious. Definitely keep talking about it. I'll just A/B test it and see if it's deeper than a ChatGPT wrapper. What do you think about podcasts as a mean to get qualitative data? Is it impartial enough? Is it objective enough, or is it still pretty biased?
I think podcasts, in a way, like I haven't thought about it a lot, but I think that podcasts are probably a better way to be get more honest data because it's more of a conversation, and I guess it depends on the context, and the two people that are in it. But generally, I think you can just with a natural conversation where you're not necessarily trying to sell anything to somebody, you're just chatting about things. You're going to get like more honest feedback, I think.
And what do I need to get the trust of the guest without doing a pre-interview, for example? What would be the best way for me to get their trust so that they can share the most on a podcast?
Ooh, to build trust in advance. I mean, I think the way that you do it, Charles, is great, because you provide a lot of value, to people that you engage with. Where, like for me personally, you provided a lot of value and a lot of tools and information and jumped on calls and helped me out when I needed information about things. So I think that builds great trust with people in advance.
And how do you ask great questions that to get like the best data possible?
Ooh, that's a good question. I should ask you that. So how do you do that, Charles? You're the podcast expert here.
Yeah, it's a mix of Chat GPT, I would guess, prompting it a lot to ask questions that are easily understandable. I think vocabulary is quite important in the corporate world. Like a lot of people are like, oh, use all these fancy corporate terms, but no, I think it's the opposite. If you speak like a human, if you're very approachable, I think that's one step. And I think it's like layers of trust, right? So and trust is very much about oxytocin, right? So if I generate that trust initially with good questions, or start with like, tell me a bit more about, I don't know, your childhood, or how did what happened at this company, for example. Easy questions, yeah, not lowball questions, but questions that are very easy to answer. You build on that. Eventually, I think you can ask like very pointy and personal questions, and eventually people even forget that they're on a podcast.
Yeah, that's a great strategy. I love that.
Right. Tell me about your fractional CMO role. Like, do you think that's still a thing? Because I can see it like being a thing on a personal and individual level. You get five clients, each paying you 50 to 75K per year, and it's like more flexible, right, than working at one company. Yeah, the company might have a smaller budget. That's cool, but do they really get tip top value as if they would hire a full time CMO?
Yeah, I think so because the way that a fractional chief marketing officer position ideally works, it doesn't always work this way, but the way that ideally works is where the fractional CMO is providing strategy and leadership, and they don't do all the marketing work themselves. They hire really strong tactical workers to do the work, or vendors, an array of vendors to do the work as well, and then they're just providing that initial strategy to make sure that the company's messaging and their targeting and everything is really on track. And they're also like prioritizing their tactics according to the best ROI for the company. And so that's what the job of the fractional CMO is. And then, so that's a high level of quality and value right there, is just providing that strategy. But then there's also the leadership aspect. So that's where you're coming in and you don't just develop the strategy and the plan, but you also are overseeing the execution of it and making sure it happens. So there's nothing worse than having like a consultant or someone coming in and like giving you a great plan, and then it just sits on the shelf. It never gets done, or in a file in your computer. So a fractional CMO will set up like standard processes that will help to make sure that that plan gets executed. So
And how do you get your clients? Is it more referrals? Do you have outbound going, LinkedIn outreach? How do you get to clients that would be interested in your service? And what kind of persona do they have? What's your ICP? What industry? What titles? What size of companies, for example?
yeah, for sure. I have a very diverse background, and I've worked in B2B and B2C companies. So I've had a lot of diverse clients. I can't just serve just one type of client. However, I really love technology. So SaaS companies are, a ICP that I'm really interested in. And also healthcare and health tech are particular ones that I think are good for me. Typically, the revenue is going to be around like a million to, up to about 20 million annual revenue for it to be a good fit. But there's certain situations where it's a startup and that can work as well, if they have funding. So.
Do you feel that the future is mostly freelancers working and very few actual employees?
That's a great question. It seems like the way that the world is shaping up, that very well could be the way things are going because there, so many layoffs, and I think AI will eliminate more jobs, for especially those people that are very tactical that did a lot of that high level of labor that you just don't need anymore because you can jump on, any AI tool and do that. So I definitely think that that's going to it's pushing more people out of jobs. So they are going to have to do things on their own, and come up with a way to survive. And freelancing, I think, is a great way to do that. So.
And what's been challenging for you in your company because you launched like 9 months ago and you've been a fractional CMO. So what's been challenging in one being a fractional CMO and two in launching that new company of yours?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think, like with anyone, just getting clients, you know, finding the clients, and also getting into my own groove of doing sales for myself. I'm a marketer. Like my background is marketing, not really sales. So trying to, get into a sales mode rather than just marketing, and then getting my own marketing, uh, up to par, up to speed. I think it's really hard when you are kind of on your own to establish all that because you're serving clients, and that's taking up your time, but then you're also trying to market your own business as well. So that has been a bit of a journey to try to find the right balance of all that.
Why do you think there's so few fractional CMOs vs fractional VP sales out there?
That is a really good question. I've never really thought about it. I guess I probably do know a lot more CMOs that are fractional than sales fractionals, but I do know quite a few of sales ones. Um, I think that what I'm seeing out there in the market is that companies tend to hire salespeople first, and they kind of put them up on a pedestal, and everybody's just really sales focused. A lot of entrepreneurs, founders are like let's hire sales, right away, and then they hire marketing as the afterthought. And I don't think that's always the best idea because I've seen companies go out and spend tons of money before they did market research, before they got a marketer involved, and their ICP was wrong, their messaging was wrong, and they spent all this money on sales, and then they bring in a marketer that tries to come in and fix all of that. But I think that may be the reason why. I'm really not sure exactly, but that's just my best guess.
Or maybe a wrong Apollo search of mine, who knows? Because my hypothesis with that would be that CMOs are a bit like further than the action than like VP sales. VP sales are more like on the ground. CMOs more on the strategic side of things. And I'm asking that my dad's also a fractional CMO, and he's been like close to sales in the last couple of years. Like you said, I think there's very few instances in which a company will be interested in pure strategy, right? Like they want action because they can straight up outsource most of the strategy to an AI? Or is this true? Do we still need like the human factor to create the best strategy, or is it just a very well prompted deep research?
Yeah, that's a good point that I have thought about recently because, AI is there's so much that you can do with AI, but I found that like you kind of have to know high level strategy first. Like you have to know what to ask the AI to do, and then you have to know when it brings back the results if those are right on or if they're not, and if you need to tweak them. So I find that it's like a human AI collaborative approach works best. It's like I use AI a lot, but it's like I will go back and forth. I use my knowledge of what I've learned over the years of my experience, and then I get in, type something in, have it create something really fast, and then I read it over, and then it spurs, my thinking and helps me to like improve it even more. So I think it's a collaborative effort. But I do see your point about like strategy and people not necessarily wanting to pay for strategy, but I think that by itself. But the reality is that companies waste so much money. If they don't do the strategy first, like they just jump into the market and they start doing all of the sales and stuff, and then they don't do any market research really much of it, and then they waste a lot of money doing it, and they wonder why their sales are slow. So. I think that it's important to do strategy first and market research first. Um, but yeah, the execution is, where, the revenue starts generating, right? So
Yeah, that's where the action is. Well, Michelle, thank you for being on today. Where can people find out more about you?
sure. They can find me on LinkedIn. I'm very active on LinkedIn, so they can go there. It's Michelle C. It's my last name is spelled Seay, and then Baker Baker, and dash APR, I believe it says on there. And then they can go to my website as well, which is Creators Edge Strategy, and just check out the different things on there, or fill out the form and send me a message from there as well. So.
Love it.